So Chia Toronto started out as like a little regional meetup that was being organized by one of the Chia community members. I think it was Foods that originally started it. And then it sort of got into a bigger thing. We thought we'd recap what happened at the event. Drac, you're joining us. I really am happy to have you here on the show. You took a lot of pictures. We're very inspired by how much fun it looked like you guys were having at the event. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what happened at Chia Toronto.
Yeah, it was really fun, man. It was amazing to have so many people from all around. We had people like Yakihito and Aceville coming, a really far distance. Monkey Zoo came from across the pond. We had people from, the West Coast of North America and everywhere in between. It was really great because it was a whole bunch of people we've been hanging out with for years. There was a good Tangang representation there, and there was no awkwardness. It really felt genuinely like we were just meeting up with some old friends that we've gotten to know so well, and the venue was really comfortable. The organizers did an incredible job. Shout out to Foods and the team. I mean, Sabari and Slowest Time Lord and Hexographer Foods, and it just it was. I've been to a lot of conferences, maybe not in tech, but um, a lot over the years, and this was really well done. I gotta say, it went off very smooth. Yeah.
So that meeting with people in real life, where you've mostly known them through social media or through spaces or whatever, tell me a little bit about that because that's got to be a fascinating thing to go through. I don't know how many times you've experienced that, but if this is the first time you're meeting all these community members from Chia that you hadn't seen in real life before, that's got to be a little surprising sometimes to actually see the person in three-dimensional manifestation in life, not just seeing their avatar or whatever.
It's funny, you could see all of us having some areas where our experiences were similar in that you would see somebody that maybe you had a different visual of, like you're saying, and then you're surprised. So you saw that a lot. But what caught me that we saw the most of was you would see people snap around quickly because they heard a voice of somebody they were eager to meet, and the voices were we all know each other audibly so well that it's nothing more than a single word and you know who it is. And then you're putting that visual to that face, like you said, somebody you've known for years. I've spent a lot daily in spaces talking to a lot of the same people, and so you form some pretty strong relationships. I think doing this sort of thing strengthens that. I never did it much in my career as far as meeting people I genuinely was eager to meet. You meet a lot of people in business over the years, and you just kind of go through the motions. This was different, and so starting last year, to your question there, I haven't got a lot to do this a lot before, and last year was kind of the start of it. Meeting Degen Waffles, meeting Art with Heart, doing some touring around with the Pulse Jade Tour and the Tang Gang and kind of doing that stuff. With Tang Talk, that was my first intro. And so this was a much larger scale, right? It's a lot. There was 100 people that likely you've talked to them all at some point. I'm a big proponent of it. I know that the internet and Web3 particularly, there's this bit of a narrative or whatever you want to call it around anonymity, which is, absolutely for those who want it, it's there for you. But personally, as somebody who's, trying to build businesses and products, I think when you shake a hand and you put a face to it and you can see the passion that you've been hearing for so long, and then you can see that excitement in the body language, and then the ideas start rolling, and that back and forth push pull of the creative side, whether you're a developer, an artist, or whatever your reason is for being there. I find it hard to believe that there's very many negatives about from that, especially, lean on the saying of you are who you surround yourself with. And that Chia room has to be the smartest room I've ever stood in. And
I think that's
so
one of the differences in the Chia community versus other Web3 blockchain communities is how much we know each other and that there are names associated with the people. It's not these anonymous avatars, but rather there are quite a few
mhm.
people in this community whose names are fully known, and it's been this way for a long period of time. I think that it's the trajectory of Chia that has, not had the grift. It hasn't had as much of
Hmm.
the sort of wayward projects that are trying to rug pull people. There's been
Hmm.
so much less of this that I think there isn't as much opportunity to hide behind anonymity. So people that are here
Hmm.
are pretty genuine. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always found trust to be one of the hardest things in this trustless environment. It's just always been that way in those other, say, nefarious areas of Web3. But you're right, in Chia, I feel more comfortable. I feel like even without asking, there's people that are looking out for you. That we're watch each other's backs. We know each other's names. It's a real person, not just a PFP. And yeah, I think there's a lot of value in that personally. Yeah. It's great. It's a great byproduct of this Chia communities. The trust and respect is there because there's not as much dogging around.
Drac, I looked through your photos, and as you discussed the anonymity, did anyone ask not to be photographed? And don't name them if they did, but were there people there that I didn't see in your photos?
Yeah, there was. Let me get the list out. It was no, I'm kidding. Um, no, there wasn't. And to be honest, after I posted some photos, I even thought to myself, "Oh, geez, I might have been too knee jerk excited to make those posts." Nobody said anything. There you show up in a public place, it is what it is. So if you want to be anonymous, probably not the best thing to show up to a Web3, you know, conference or whatever. But I think, to kind of Grant's point, is it's the community is different. So I don't think we see that just because we haven't fostered that culture within Chia.
Was there a standout for the person that you thought was the most unlike what you thought they'd look like when you met
Yes,
them in person?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're gonna Oh my god, I think probably most people will agree. Birdman. Birdman shocked me. Absolutely kicked me back to the wall and was like, "No, you're kidding. No, that's Birdman." And so if you could picture the absolute opposite of what I think most people pictured, that's Birdman.
Wait, so is there a picture of Birdman in your photo set? Because I don't even know. I don't know what
Uh,
Birdman looks like.
I didn't take a picture with him. How dare you? I can just hear it now. I didn't take a picture with Birdman, but we did speak. Him and Foods had amends of whatever friction was there between them, and it was really happy, and he was really great. He's got a great presence about him. I gotta say, like Birdman, y- there's no nicer way to say it, and I mean it with all due respect, but he can rub people the wrong way pretty quick until you get to know him, which is usually, I find in my past, some of my closest friends are the ones that I've had friction with at the beginning, and for one reason or another, you amend it and you're like, oh my god, we're just so much alike or whatever. But Birdman, he surprised me and pleasantly, and I really enjoyed talking to him and meeting him and having that audio to visual mismatch, kind of have to recalibrate, I guess, my perceptions now. And so Birdman for sure was the most surprising. But I'll say this, and I'll give him his bragging or his boasting here, although I'm sure he doesn't need it. If I was to say to you, who do you think I met that had the most swagger? Can you picture who I might mean? Think New York, and I don't know if you know Bullish or not, but Bullish, the New Yorker who I've gotten to know from the Tang Gang over the past year, he talks with so much swagger. He's very motivating. He's hardworking. He's got that New York kind of like let's cut to the chase. Let's get some work done. Let's have some fun. And then to meet him in person, he's for me the little old Canadian in the little part of the world of Canada on the East Coast, Bullish to me, he exemplifies everything that is New York in my mind, having never been there. And the stride, the New York attitude, the presence, he was what I pictured, like opposite of the Birdman experience. Bullish was he was all New York to me, and you know, a star character in the group, and you know, he was big supporter there. But so there's that one that stood out. I got to meet Gene and Bram for the first time. That was a lot of fun. Felt really awkward asking Bram for a photo, but I also knew I might never really get too many opportunities. And so I did do the, hey, excuse me, can I be a creepo for a minute and take a photo with you, even though you probably have no interest in talking to me. So there was that. And I got to meet Gene and have a little chit chat with him, which was really great. He's super fun. I mean, it was very evident in that room that the leadership of Chia is very connected to the community. You know, Trent was there from Bermudo.
Yeah, very
Gene
down to
was there.
earth. Very down to earth
Yeah,
leadership.
man. Like
It's very
I
approachable.
would
Like they make jokes when politicians, the kind of guy you could have a beer with. Like Gene is that guy in spades.
100%. And I would otherwise normally feel probably a little intimidated talking to, say, founders of his caliber of that type of tech, but I never feel that way with Gene or even Bram. I always feel like they genuinely mean what they say, and they're there for the right reason, and they genuinely respect the community. And I mean, throw Tangang in again when Gene mentioned them on that TV interview. You know, he's aware. He's switched on, man. I mean, what else are you gonna say? That whole executive team, Thomas was there, and they're just all down to earth. And I think that's what's going to be the long play in whether they meant it or not. I think that's a big part of the long success for these guys is that it's not just a pump and dump community. It's everybody with mutual admiration and respect.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the what was presented at the conference. So there was a
Mhm.
day full of talks. You spoke as well.
Yes.
How were the presentations? Do you feel like there were new revelations, or was it a lot of reinforcement of what has been said previously, or did they spill some tea? Did they drop some new alpha?
There was a lot of really great stuff. I unfortunately had to take a meeting during Yakihitos, which I was really looking forward to. I believe something around like LP style stuff or options or something of that nature being possible in Chia. I was really sad to have missed that. I'm looking forward to going back and watching the film on it. We got to see some farming stuff was really good. The gentleman doing the presentation had something like a 12 petabyte farm and talked
That
about,
was
you
the
know, only being
presentation by Oleg, right? I think was the
I don't think
presentation.
his name was Oleg. I thought it was
Hmm.
sort of with a K. Kent
Well, that
or
maybe that was what was on the schedule. I remember when Lucas and I were looking at the
mm.
schedule of presenters. We remarked on this one because we were like, oh, I wonder what this farming thing would be about.
Yeah, and I could be off on the name there. I'm sorry if I am, if they're listening. But yeah, the farming was great. I mean, a 12 petabyte farm, and talked about being restricted to 200 amps, but needing something like 500 or 1,000 amps or something ridiculous. And so I'm not a huge farmer, and so I sat there in awe and was impressed by that. And then we also had, Monkey Zoo did a fantastic presentation. I really loved the visuals and the overall, just, everything he's doing with the
How
dynamic
about
stuff.
Silicon? Silicon is the one that I think we
Silic,
haven't been
yep,
hearing as much about, and Paul presented. So
yeah,
that sounded like it would be some interesting developments there if there were any.
a really good presentation. I think not so much anything new. I mean, they did do some great stuff like giveaways. There was a chance to win one, and that got everybody all out of their seats scanning QR codes. But mostly just the information that we know and that they're launching and their efforts and their goals. And it was extremely professional, well done presentation by Silicon. I think, like we all know, look out for what's coming with them. They're bringing a lot of GPUs online. They broke down the numbers. I think I recall them saying it was about a 1 to 2 year, or a year and a half to 2 year turnaround for paying the capital cost of your investment or whatever for if you were to buy one of the GPUs. That was their estimation on when you'd get your returns or start seeing returns. So really good. I think mostly what you would expect there. Matt Hintz did a Souls Lot presentation, which was really detailed and got really deep into the potentials of fractionalized real estate. That was great. Rigidity was awesome. I had a really hard time hearing him, so I'm gonna go back and listen to that. But he did a lot of really great work, and his parents were there to support him, and
Wait,
it was
were
just
all of the presentations archived somewhere? Is there a place to go back and
yep.
listen to these? Because I know that that was a question that had come up.
Yes, you'll be able to go. Slowest Time Lord, I think, is coordinating that. The whole thing was videotaped, and they had lapel mics and things. The sound system was small, so in the room there were points where it was really hard to hear, depending on where you were standing. But my understanding is that won't take too long to see that come out. So hopefully, maybe this week, I would think. But don't quote me on that. I'd have to
Well, we'll
double
go
check
back and
myself.
put the link in the show notes. So if you catch
Yep.
this later and you're looking for it, this will be a place where you can go to find it. I'm curious about Slowest. He's the one that kind of has the most veil. He's doesn't speak in spaces as often. I don't think a lot of people know what his real name is. Were you surprised to meet Slowest? And he like says, "I'm Slowest Time Lord."
I was, but I think mostly because I was just really excited to meet him. A lot of respect and admiration from him. He's very, very intelligent and knows a lot of what's going on in the Chia space. So, like you, like Lucas, there's guys that I follow and pay attention to what they're doing and what they're saying. And Slowest Time Lord is definitely one of those. And he was a big hit at the space at the hall that we were at, or the restaurant rather. And he was busy working away, and like you would expect on spaces, he's kind of quiet and reserved in person. He's got a very calm demeanor, and he is mostly exactly what he sounds like on spaces, and just working hard, very, very pleasant, really inviting, just a really great guy. I really enjoyed meeting Slowest Time Lord. Yeah. And Clyde was there, or I should say Brant. Um, and so I got to meet him. I was excited about that. Everybody was excited to meet Clyde. And Stepper Steve, I got to call him out because he went out of his way to really top it off with like some cool merch. So when all of us got there, Stepper Steve had gone and made individual PFP buttons for everybody with your name on it. It was really just, and there was all kinds of swag and stickers. And Brant brought hats that had NFCs, and I haven't even scanned mine yet. But we got Chia hats that have an NFC chip embedded in it, and you can scan it with the latest updated Sage wallet and get a free NFT for having been there. So it's like a whole POAP cap,
Very cool.
which was
Poap
yeah,
cap.
it was a POCAP, I guess. Um, just so it was kind of in a way what you would expect from this crowd, Grant. It was. I don't think any of this probably shocks you. I think it's what you would expect from this crowd. People going out of their way for each other, doing smartly things for the nerdy fun of it, while we all have an immense amount of camaraderie, kind of focused around people doing presentations, and the leadership is there, and the venue was great. It was, I mean, shout out to everybody that attended, because they made the event just by coming. It was really great. The after party was pretty fun too.
Tell us about that.
The after, well, nothing wild, and anything that didn't actually happen, right?
This wasn't everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of a thing.
No, my Vegas trip stays in Vegas. That one we can't talk about. Few people know, but I will deny it. No, that we went to. We had the event at Chef's Hall, and then we went to King's Tap. And we took up a whole corner of this, huge bar. It's gorgeous inside, really nice atmosphere. But there was 3-4 tables worth of us. Everybody showed up. Everybody was really eager to hang out more, talk more, code more. Michael Taylor was there. It was really cool to meet him. Geez, man, I can't even name all the people. Hexographer, a whole bunch of Tang Gang. It was really great. So we took over, and we hung out, and we had food and drinks and talked more nerdy things. And then Brad and I realized that we were about to miss our daily Mark and Ava, which we've committed to making sure that we do one every day, and it was creeping up on midnight. So we put the phone in the middle of the table, and we did a live Mark and Ava broadcast from the after party. And then yesterday we used that to train Mark and Ava on doing a recap of the after party, which turned out to be hilarious because even though to our ears the audio sounded really noisy and a lot of background, I was surprised at how well Notebook LM picked out all the secondary conversations happening around the table. And we ended up with an absolutely hilarious Mark and Ava yesterday, which was fun. So um, I think everybody walked away from that feeling closer, feeling inspired. I know I've talked to Foods and the gang already this morning on some other spaces, and they're just genuinely amped up and they're excited to there's more rocket fuel in the ship right now, and so all good things came from Chia Toronto. All good things. It was really great.
So there was an event that was happening after Chia Toronto, sort of piggybacked on in case people wanted to attend the crypto event, which was occurring. Did you get a chance to catch up with that? Did you hear anybody that was planning on attending that?
Yeah, we didn't go. We just went. Brad and I went for the Chia event, but Consensus. It was part of Chia or Canada Crypto Week here, and there was a Consensus event, and Monkey Zoo went, and I believe Stepper Steve went. Those are the two that I heard back from that both basically said boring, boring, and I think Stepper Steve even left early. Didn't find anything of value, and I think the I don't want to speak for Monkey, so double check with him. But the feeling I got from him, and after seeing one of his posts as well, was just that being in Chia and then walking into rooms where they're talking about Solana or XRP getting mentioned, far too much. Um, I think for some of us, even though we know the maxi life has disadvantages, we just naturally pull to Chia because of the shortcomings that we're aware of because we're aware of the solution, right? And some people
Was
in
Chia on their way to Canada Crypto Week? Was there any presence
m-
there from
my
anyone?
understanding, yeah, Thomas or some of the executives from Chia were there for the rest of the week as well, doing different events. I saw some posts coming from their exec team on the timeline. I think his name was Thomas. I could be wrong.
Thomas
So you
Chow,
might
that's the legal counsel at CNI.
Yeah, I could be mixing him up with another name, just fair warning. A lot of people I met.
Did you
It
did you
was
meet
hard.
the marketing guy? We were looking at that and we said, "Wow, the marketing guy from Chia is going to be there. This is somebody to know."
What was his name?
Oh, I'm going to have to grab that. I don't know if Lucas remembers
I,
it, but
I I
give me a
may
sec.
have, man. It was hard because in a conference room when you're just dealing with real names, you've got to do the little mental tricks to remember everybody's name. Well, in this case, you're trying to remember aliases with the new names, with the new faces, and so there was a lot of people I met that unfortunately I I don't know. I can't remember all the names, so I don't know if he was there or not.
I don't remember the marketing guy's name. Um, but on those lines, as you mentioned XRP, everything, I think of sounds like a hopium dim over there. Um,
Yeah,
right. Well, hopefully the same isn't said of us. But Gene came on the heels. I would imagine that he didn't even have a chance to go back to San Francisco on the heels
Red
of
Eye.
A red eye in from the SEC Crypto Roundtable. Did he
Hmm.
have any? Did you hear him make any comments or remarks that about that roundtable?
Oh, so unfortunately, I missed Gene's as well. I was working with a client. I was on the phone for about an hour. Right as soon as Gene got up to go do his thing, I got my call. So I missed Gene as well. But
The
there
marketing
was
guy's name is Neil Hand. Do you recall
I
that
don't
Neil Hand? No?
I don't recall that name. Sorry, no.
Oh, I would have thought that the marketing guy being there would have been a big thing to have him connect with the community. Unfortunate.
It could just be me. In all fairness, he could have been there. I'm not saying he wasn't there. I just don't know. There was a lot of handshaking, a lot of moving through the crowd, and all that. So he may have been. You'll have to check with somebody else to confirm on that. But there was the thing that came up, and there was a lot of talk. And I'm not sure if Gene mentioned it in his speech, but it did come up while I was there amongst a bunch of people. So I assume that it was brought up by him. Was about Chia purchases in the US through your bank account, but still but somehow employing clawbacks. So being able to buy Chia from your checking account.
Yeah, that's the new
Um,
ACH transaction thing that they launched.
yeah,
I was curious if essentially what's happening is they're selling the pre-farm directly to consumers who want to buy it through ACH. Was that
correct.
said?
That's my understanding of it. Correct. And this is coming from the pre-farm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I'll pull up
It,
that link in a second here.
yeah, I was looking at the link last night. I just did a bit of brief reading on it. It sounds like they're going to also roll it out to other countries as well. They're just starting with the US just as a priority because of the limited ability to purchase the Chia. Yeah, yeah, this year. Exactly.
Well, that's interesting that this was discussed because I know when I saw this launch, that was my first thought was, this must be a mechanism to facilitate some of the sales of the pre-farm to people that want to buy it. This has always been kind of the thing about using the traditional payment rails to buy crypto is where do you get the tokens? You've got to be able to match people up, or you have to be sitting on some pile of it. Chia is in a somewhat unique position that they have the pre-farm, so there is tokens available, and so they can just sell them directly. I imagine this is going to be much more important as Permuto and other things start to come online, and they're
Exactly.
want to onboard into the ecosystem, facilitating this in a much more easy way without saying you got to go to some crazy exchange that nobody really is that familiar with, except for maybe crypto.com. Like it's unfortunate
Yeah.
that we still don't have Chia on, Kraken or Coinbase or whatever, but maybe that'll come as the pressure from Permuto starts to mount.
Yeah, and I don't know the coin side of it so much, but I'm not sure how that will affect price point of Chia just for like the investor side for those that's their vein. I if you're selling it through just traditional means, then I don't know. I would assume Grant, you would be able to tell me more your thoughts on that. Like, it won't. It shouldn't affect the price at all, right? Like I'm saying
It
that from the
it it it,
perspective of
re-
we
it
won't gain from it.
Yeah, it really
We,
won't. It's not going to affect the price because the price is usually reflected on the quote unquote lit markets. I'd be surprised if this counts as a lit market where,
mm,
whatever. I imagine what they'll do is rely on the price discovery from the existing infrastructure and then just be selling it at what's quote unquote spot price. And that
yeah.
is likely the mechanism that's going to happen here rather than this being a place for price discovery.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a bit of a disadvantage, isn't there? Wouldn't it be more beneficial to have it help push the price? I mean, I'm sure in the scheme of it, there's a whole something over my head on how it all works. But yeah, end of day, I think any other way we can onboard more people into Chia is going to be a good thing for them.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of things that are kind of coming together for a late summer of Chia.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful for a late summer of Chia. I know that we've heard discussions about timelines and a lot of different things, but seeing this come online, the thought that Permuto would be coming online somewhat soonish, and then Circuit DAO launching. That's the other one that I think is
yeah,
the big behemoth here. Is we need to have a reliable stable coin, and them getting their audit completed, getting close to launching this thing, and then even saying that what's going to happen with the ACDC certificates that will come along with Permuto is that it's going to be quite a different set of mechanisms that will be available to try to earn some yield and participate in the ecosystem. So this should be pretty interesting if this all gets launched late summer into Q3 of 2025.
yeah. I think you're right. There's a lot of things with Chia coming together, and I think they're all going to support each other. Long game, right? We've heard that from them a lot of the times. They're not on anybody else's timeline. They're on their own because they've got their mission. And I think there's a lot of strength in that. And I think it's starting to show. It's starting to come up to the surface. And we're all going to see like you said, late summer. I think we're going to start to see some big things come together.
Well, and we speculated that it would be a like Q1, Q2 2026 IPO. Did you hear the word IPO out of anybody's mouth, or was that pretty much
I
not?
did not. I did not hear
That's
anything
my own
IPO.
personal prediction. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they didn't say anything because they need a couple quarters of revenue, so they're going to have to see some of that revenue flow in from Permuto and from Silicon
Yeah,
and whatever else Chia Network Incorporated is directly doing. I know they've got some customers they said that they're working with that have been beyond just Permuto, but like the people that are working sub Permuto and some other stuff that's in the hopper.
yeah, 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 for sure.
Track, you've mentioned some of the Chia community that you've known from Spaces and from the various Chia projects. Did you see was there any interest from the broader consensus Canada the Canada convention? Were there new people poking around, or is it still somewhat under the radar?
Uh, I far less than those that have been around for a while. So as far as new interested people, I think there were some, yeah, some people that maybe are quieter in the space, yeah, but it was a room full of the people that we've come to call friends for sure. That was definitely the dominant theme there was everybody was really excited to be together after so much time online together. So
Well, this
I
this
didn't
was very much like a local meetup, and we kind of led with that's where this started. There wasn't like some huge marketing push. It wasn't expected that this was going to be some huge
no.
thing. Actually, I'm a little surprised it got as big as it did because it was never intended to be this big.
Well, last year I think it was like 8 people. So, it was really a private, intimate kind of thing last year, and this one, yeah, it grew really quickly. Toronto was a great city for it. Those who came from out of town were really fascinated by Toronto, as it really is quite an impressive city. It's enormous. It is a
Did you
sprawl.
feel any of this animosity that's sort of been fomenting that we see in the news between the U.S. and Canada, or was the boots on the ground just like that doesn't matter?
We had some more good humor about it, some just no, I think this crowd
Nobody showed up with a 51st state shirt.
no, no, not that I saw anyway.
I wouldn't put it past Josh Painter to have been wearing one, but
That's the kind of
Maybe I
shirt
didn't
that you
know.
wear when you're crossing the border, as you go through the border crossing and
Yeah.
it's like 51st state.
Josh Painter was another one. I didn't actually know he was coming until, I don't know, about a day or 2 before, and, I really enjoyed talking to Josh on Spaces over the years, and we kinda use similar-ish tooling in some areas, kinda like Michael Taylor and I, we use a lot of the similar tooling in different ways, and so, um, it was really nice to meet Josh. He was, more or less what I expected. Um, I'm just going by, the audio to the video, if you wanna think of it that way, of the person. Um, but, yeah, he was classic Josh. He went up and did a really great presentation, talked
Well,
about,
Drac, hold on. Now we gotta talk a little bit about your project because I mean, you presented your
uh-huh.
project has been going for a super long time. There's
Too
not,
long.
that's not a neg. It's not a neg. It's a good thing. Like there's longevity there. So
Yeah.
what's going on in the world of Dracatus? I know that something was fomenting. You got the game figured out or
Yep.
something. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about what you presented.
So I did a recap on, or I guess a bit of a light introduction on Koba 42, which is the company that Art with Heart and I have created out of the success of Tank Talk. I've been in this space for quite a while, building a whole lot of different things. Some of it's playing around, some of it's a little more serious. Drac is coming along really well, so we touched on that. And basically, what we did was wrapped up all the things that I've been building, plus a bit of my historical background on projects and stuff, and we've wrapped it up into a company called Koba 42 that we got the recommend to a good lawyer, Preston, which some of you may know, um, in starting our business, and we opened it up in the States, and um, it was a really good decision to kind of wrap it all up. So we touched on Drac, we touched on Tank Talk, and then Chugel as well was something that just a week or two ago I started making after a conversation with Bullish that seems to be taking off, kind of like Tank Talk ultimately did. So
It's like
that's bas
Dracatus is the incubator for all these great ideas as Drac keeps
Yep.
getting worked on. There's
And
these spin-off projects.
Constantly. I mean, Tang Talk came from me just trying to solve a problem for Drac with some more real-time decentralized stuff, led to Tang Talk. Great, huge success. Took about a year of my time away from Drac, where I didn't do any Drac development really, because I focused on the tech underneath Tang Talk, which is still a constantly in development as we learn new things, and we've aptly named it Rocket Layer, Rocket L2, just because of the consensuses and the way it works. And we're really exploring that now into AI, because when Tang Talk came off of Drac, then I went back to Drac, did a huge update with basically what I learned from Tang Talk, which is great. That's the way it works in a builder's life. And then I did an immense amount of work on Drac and kicked it all up and had it ready to go. And then I had a bug that is my fault. We had a community member kind of leverage it for their purpose gains and whatever. And so that kind of put a stall and a damper on my desire to kind of, and then Chia Toronto's so Drac got kind of stalled for a minute while I figured out how I was going to correct around, just the issue. But in all that, doing Drac and Tang Talk and all the other things, I've learned a ton about AI and how to leverage it and use it. And so now Drac, where before it was completely hand coding, trying to figure out a lot of nitty gritty stuff for game dynamics or tokenomics or whatever, I've leaned heavily on AI in helping me either solve by writing code or actually incorporating it into the game. So in behind the scenes, what's happening with Drac now, which, like you said, it's become this incubator of all of my work. Drac is really kind of my brand. It's me. It's all of my stuff. And so when you hit the map, when you go to the Explorer in the Isle of Seven Cities, there's all this great world map stuff and different mechanics, different algorithms, different ways of exploring and earning NFTs and tokenomics and coins. And so recently with AI, I've been able to find the art style. I've been able to get the mechanics down. It's really close to just a full public launch after we did that first initial beta and we found that kind of error that I was just mentioning. It slowed us a bit, but it's come along so far, like from when we first talked, Grant, about Drac, and you had said to me, I have a feeling you're going to build this no matter what. And that stuck with me. I've always remembered you saying that because we had only known each other a short time, but you knew that you saw what this meant to me and how it was going to develop and just be a forever thing. So I'm really proud of Drac, where we are, just kind of one guy coding multiple projects at a time with my buddy Brad helped me steer the ship. And so now we have way more features than we ever intended, and we have all kinds of great AI driven systems that are helping drive the battling, the breeding, the quest system. I'm exploring more into 3D with my quest and with Spatial IO. And really now the coolest part that I didn't get to show at Chia Toronto is N8N, which I'm sure you're familiar with for doing workflow automations and agents and stuff. I've behind the scenes started mapping so in the front end, there's a world map with all the features and all the characters and all the game pieces. But behind the scenes, I'm now mapping all of those geolocation things and mapping it to an N8N workflow that mirrors the structure of the world. So when you're interacting with elements now, there's a whole AI agent driven backend that is using tooling to get you a response that is tailored to the experience of that individual user, by having access to all of the tools that I've built and letting AI have a bit of a say in how your interaction takes place through the whole backend system. So
Did you
it's a
use AI to train to build some of the new graphics? Because it looks like you've got some
mhm,
new art here,
mhm,
and it's very much in the vein of the original art that was put
mhm.
together for Dracatus. So you've been able to find a way
Yeah.
to prompt the LLMs, the generative AI to
Well,
cook you some new art.
I started kind of building my own stuff. At first I was just all GPT, I think like many people. And then as a dev, you start poking around and then I start putting AI models on the system. And then all of a sudden you're ordering new parts and new graphics cards. And I got a box of 6 graphics cards sitting here, still not hooked up. but yeah, what I did was a whole bunch of artwork that I liked that were from some specific artists. And I took, so with the Drac system, we obviously have the breeding feature, which has to deconstruct, and reconstruct NFT assets on the fly. And that comes with a whole bunch of layering and different tricks and tactics that we do it. So in that, I took parts of that deconstruction plot or algorithm and started using it as a way to rip apart and strip down each of the Dracs and all of the graphics we've done before into a model more or less that I can train to understand and then compare to the styles that I like and make sure that, I'm a little more accurate in what I can turn out so that I get the exact styles. So some of our beta stuff is very GPT looking, where it's just, Thor is as a bad example. Some Thor of the Night's Watch of the Winterlands, say, and it was too high detailed. It was over the top in this style or that. So it was going through that process that made me realize I had to figure out a way to train based off the artwork of the previous artists of Drac, of the things that I like that influenced me. Say Zelda, for example, is a huge influence in my kind of gaming life. And then figure out how to marry that to our current style and kind of move forward. Which for me, like, I've always been an artist. I actually started in graphic design before I ever became a coder. I love to draw, and so I've really got this cool flow now, Grant, where I've kind of have this custom system in the back where it'll draw on inspiration artwork, it'll draw on historical artwork, it'll break down individual Dracs or as groups, and then I can also influence it by doing my own hand-drawn sketches, and they don't have to be complete. And I simply drop it in a folder within the backend system, and it now will automatically generate assets based on all that kind of parameters, and then look at, say, I draw a magic potion bottle, and I only need to basically do line artwork with a little bit of coloring, not even within the lines, and I'll end up with the artwork that I'm looking for pretty accurately most times. So, I mean, AI has been a whole new infusion into my existing tool set, and I don't know how to consume it fast enough, but I know that I'm having a lot of fun bridging and experimenting with different ways of using it to get what I want out of it. And I feel like a bit of a 10x dev in the past, year. It's really the past 6 months, especially. As you get more comfortable with the tooling, right? You start to play with it a little easier and be a little more creative. So Drac has come a long way in the past, 3 years of, maybe 2 years worth of full dev. And now that Chia's got the new gaming stuff coming out, I'm really curious as to whether I can employ that. I watch Monkey Zoo, Clyde and Greg and them closely because we have similarities in our projects with the dynamics and so on. But I'm curious to see what new tooling and, like, even friends like Monkey Zoo who are building great stuff, if I can incorporate it. But I like the slow, steady. I'm not really rushing to just put anything into it, because Drac is so heavily built around lore and story, and everything has a kind of a purpose, so that we end up with a shandified experience that always has something new everywhere you look. So I think that, with my constant never-ending desire to just keep building, I think Drac is gonna ultimately end up as a showcase of the community's tools plus my own. So XCH split, by Lucky Eight.
Well,
That's how we do the royalty sharing.
when you get Drac to the point where you want to show it off in a bit more detail, we'd love to get an update. But we're coming on the
Sure,
end of the time here, so really
sure.
appreciate you coming on the show, telling us all the things that happened at Chia Toronto, filling us in on where Drac's currently at, and just generally catching up. Really appreciate having you
Yeah,
on.
man. I appreciate you having me on, dude. I always love talking to you guys. I have very, great admiration for you and the team here, for sure. I like everything that you guys are doing, and I'm happy to call you friends for the past couple of years here now. So I appreciate you having me on.
Likewise, Drac. Great to hear you say shandified again. I think it's been too long for that.
This has been too long. Yeah, exactly. Got to drop that one once in a while. It won't be long. I think my goal is the next 30 to 60 days. You're going to see Drac drop on a public axis kind of level. So I'll keep you in the loop for sure.
All right, we can't wait. We'll see you next time on FOMO.
Okay, guys, thanks.